Amish women follow a distinctive custom with solid cultural roots, never cutting their hair, while contemporary fashions frequently encourage individual expression. For these ladies, having long hair represents more than looks. It also represents obedience, humility, and a solid commitment to their faith. Although the stringent hair regulations may appear strange to outsiders, the Amish society places excellent significance on them. How do Amish women feel about this custom, and what's its basis? Let's explore the ideas that influence this activity. Schools out. The Amish educational system ends at the 8th grade for both boys and girls. After their official schooling, Amish males might pursue apprenticeships in trade or agriculture to gain a comprehensive education. Since the males would be the primary providers for their families after they start their own, they must learn a trade. Now let's talk about women. They go to the same school as the males, but have fewer possibilities after 8th grade. Girls can teach, but will be too busy to work after marriage due to the required household responsibilities. If they decide to become teachers, they must quit after getting married and becoming a full-time wife and, ideally, mother. No cheese. Pictures. In Amish culture, they're double-edged blade with sharp edges. Since humility is so highly regarded and highlighting oneself is viewed as arrogant and boastful, individualism is essentially discouraged. They emphasize a more straightforward manner of living and favor interpersonal relationships over visual representations. According to the Amish, making depictions of oneself, even paintings, violates the second commandment, which forbids the creation of graven images. They feel that such images promote selfishness and counter the fundamental values of modesty and community that form the basis of their way of life. If their faces are turned away or otherwise hidden, you might be able to grab a shot, but only if you're lucky. Their lives and legacy, not their outward looks, are what they want to be remembered for. Married off at 18. A culture that adheres to the teachings of the Bible would naturally have a conventional position on premarital sex. It's customary for courting couples to avoid touching each other until they get married. However, different societies may have different norms regarding what's acceptable and unacceptable. A couple of smooches would be sufficient for some more laid-back ones. When children reach the age of 18, they're ready for marriage. When it's formal, courtship moves quickly, and many of them will select their partners when they're 16 or 17. Amish is always their mate. It may surprise you to learn that every adolescent has the opportunity to experience the non-Amish world and see what they think. 90% of them rejoin the group. Adult baptism. This is a fundamental Amish principle held by other Anabaptist groups. The concept is straightforward. Baptism should be a mature choice demonstrating a person's readiness to accept full Christian status. They contend that baptism is inconsistent with the Bible because it implies that a child is capable of moral judgment. According to the Amish, a person doesn't begin to sin until they can distinguish between right and wrong. Thus, a child is unable to comprehend this. Baptism is a formal means to become a church member. It does more than only atone for sins. Most baptisms are between 18 and 22 and perform baptisms every 2 years. They take this seriously because it's a life-altering decision. Surprisingly, almost 85% of young Amish people choose this route. Clean faces. Ladies of the West, are you seated? Amish women do not wear makeup. However, cosmetics is a statement of Amish individualism, not a means of stifling women or suggesting that it's the devil's weapon. Everyone is encouraged to appear simple in Amish culture as a sign of humility and an understanding that they're subservient to the church. But pride plays a part as well. But the Amish don't play with pride. Denying society's more secular tendencies reflects their decision to remain distinct from the rest as a culture committed to the idea of a close-knit community. Makeup is unnecessary for an Amish woman, and to be honest, it would simply interfere with her way of life. Church segregation. Women and men sit apart during an Amish church session. While the young people have their area with gender segregation, the children will sit among them. Every alternate Sunday, the services are conducted in a community member's home. They have benches that they move around the house for this, and each take turns hosting. They all congregate in a large barn or shop if there is one. Otherwise, they use various areas within the house. The preacher is chosen at the beginning of each service, and the pastors are chosen randomly. Then, without any notes, he preaches for over an hour. They sing as well, but without instruments. More later. Everyone knows the songs by heart, even if there's a hymn book. The birds and the bees. Sex ed is not taught in Amish schools. In actuality, adults will disregard any discussion on the topic, particularly in the presence of youngsters. Naturally, this does not prevent the children from learning the unsavory information independently. The best spot to hear rumors and get the inside scoop on anything is in the fields during the farming season. Teens typically discuss forbidden topics in small talk with their classmates. It resembles the Amish equivalent of social networking in general. Talking with older young adults is the best way to learn about popular subjects because youngsters don't have access to the media. Any boundary violations before marriage will be resolved quickly. It's not so much a lousy conversation topic as it's just not a topic at all. Preventive measures. Can you picture going to great lengths to ensure you'll never have to pay the hefty amount required for health care in the United States? The Amish are using their teeth in just that manner. Since the Amish are undoubtedly not a wealthy group, they extract their teeth to avoid having to pay for dental procedures, which is very costly for them. Totally, however, it appears that young adults and even teenagers are removing their choppers and walking around with dentures. So it's not just the elderly. It works if it does. Be fruitful and multiply. There is much to be said regarding Genesis 1:28. Around 320,000 people in 2017. Yes, that biblical verse discusses man's obligation to procreate. As with many biblical mandates, the Amish take it very seriously, which entails using birth control sparingly. Typically, an Amish family has 6 or 7 kids. They only think about spacing out births using contraceptives. There have been worries about the genetic variety in the Amish since they prefer to remain isolated from the outside world. Community leaders know this and work to promote genetic mixing. Now the population has grown to 380,000 to 400,000 in mid-2024. Unequal marriage. The Bible is well known for its views on a woman's duty to submit to her husband. And to be honest, our Amish girls seem to be in a pretty precarious situation. The Amish men are in charge of religious affairs and almost all decisions. Consequently, a wife is subservient in public. But in the seclusion of their own houses, things may be different. In addition to parenting their children, the women share responsibility for household chores. Both household and business responsibilities are typically divided between the pair if their men work from home. Although it's uncommon, many women may occasionally take on the role of primary provider. Although Amish men are supposed to be the head of the household, you know the authority behind the throne, right? Minding their own business. As you probably know, the Amish don't have judges, courts, or jails. However, that does not imply that there's no crime at all. Thankfully, they have meager crime rates, which may be due to their aggressive efforts to deter crime. It's important to stress that these procedures won't apply to someone who isn't baptized, since they haven't committed to upholding the Ordnung standards of faith. What could be worse than incarceration? Excommunication. There are ways to stop it before it reaches that point, but a sinner will be rejected if they don't turn from their wrongdoing. Only until repentance is attained is the maidang, or social exclusion, carried out. During this time, the offender is not even permitted to eat at the same table as an Amish person. The sinner leaves the church and never communicates with their loved ones again if they do not turn from their sin. SAHM. Being a stay-at-home mother requires enough labor, and most mothers also work full-time or part-time jobs. By default, Amish women play similar roles. She will likely participate if her spouse works from home. She might even be the primary earner if it's a home-based business. Why? because gender roles are delineated in Amish culture. However, an Amish woman's husband and kids always come first. Having an at-home husband to assist her with that would be incredibly beneficial. She has to be at home to manage the house, but no one doubts her business ability. The spouse will always be in charge of the work outside the home if the family's income is derived from it. Hem. Rain or shine, Amish gowns can only reach a woman's calf. Both the men's clothing and dresses are part of the uniform. These uniforms are intended to deter conceit and boastfulness and to promote the idea that people should admire the inner and invisible attributes of other people more than their external looks. The Amish community also aspires to stand out from the outside world. The purpose of this uniform is to strengthen the Amish community's bonds while promoting faith and humility. But according to legend, you could be taken aback if you were to glimpse an Amish washing line. We've heard stories about colorful underwear with Disney characters on them. When asked, the potential wearer replied, "No one can see them," with a gleam in her eye. Compulsory prayer cap. The prayer headgear worn by all Amish women symbolizes their surrender to God. Although they may appear to be similar, there are several styles. While less rigorous societies permit a softer cap with less shape, more traditional communities prefer extremely stiff caps that remain in place even without strings. Young, unmarried women may attend religious services wearing a black cap, while unmarried girls leave their caps free and play with them with their fingers to flirt with the young guys. Married women bow the strings under their chin. Women order their caps online in certain tech-evolved towns, although the ladies or a local seamstress usually makes them. Beautiful in blue. The new trend of virginal white for brides began when Queen Victoria of England wore a white lace dress to her wedding. However, Amish women don't care about queens or popular culture, and they're free to choose the color of their wedding dress. That being said, they typically select blue. The bridesmaids will wear similar attire. The bride will often hand sew the dress, which will be simple and calf length. After that, she'll wear it to church services and be buried in it. She can only wear a black cap to church on her wedding day. The black high-top shoes that finish the ensemble go nicely with it. No preaching. All right, please be patient while we go a little medieval. Amish women are not allowed to have leadership or positions of authority in the church. Once more, this is based on what the Bible says. Gender roles are well defined in the Bible and consequently in the Amish society. In church affairs, males are in charge, and women are obedient to them in public. However, this does not imply that women are less valuable than men. It merely operates inside a belief system that asserts women have distinct responsibilities to play. While we are by no means claiming that it is effective for everyone, it is effective in these close-knit, peaceful communities where everyone shares. Perhaps women are content to assume these positions because society does not portray them as less deserving. It makes a big difference to feel respected. Home births. Most Amish women will give birth in their homes. The husband and possibly a female catcher will be there, and they will not disclose their pregnancy to anybody else. This is due to several factors, not the least of which is the cost of giving birth in a hospital several times for people without insurance. It's also convenient. Amish women who are expected frequently keep up housework until labor, giving delivery without any apparent pain medication. The idea of pain treatment surprises them, so women continue to wear special garments that allow them to have direct skin-to-skin contact with their newborns. Interestingly, many wait to feed their infants since they think breast milk will arrive the next day. Although it might seem unusual, this strategy is effective in their community. Long locks. Paul discusses head coverings and hair cutting in 1 Corinthians 11. His, or perhaps the translator's, statements have an ambiguity that allows for interpretation, as is familiar with the Bible. According to the Amish, a lady dishonors herself if her hair is cut. A woman's long hair is her pride, but a man's long hair is a disgrace. Naturally, one should never take pride in one's beauty, Therefore, the Amish ladies hide their long hair with their prayer caps and pin it up. In contrast, men are supposed to grow a beard to demonstrate their status after getting married, following which they shave their faces. It's interesting to note that they don't have mustaches because the military favored them during the persecution of the Amish. As a result, the mustache represents aggression. Off the grid. The Amish used no commercial power. Their policy of rejecting contemporary technical advancements includes this. We would initially consider this concept to be almost trivial. It sounds like they're chopping off their nose by rejecting convenience to show they're different, but it's not easy. Most technical devices on the market are designed to make a task more accessible or more viable. Discouragement of individualism and cooperation are the goals of Amish society. They can use power when needed, despite what many people think. They can see the advantage of doing so in specific situations and are not irrational. It's acceptable as long as it doesn't conflict with religious principles. However, it will be powered by a battery or produced locally. Being apart from the outside world is a big component of Amishness. As a result, they cannot and will not permit their village to join the national electric grid. However, some groups permit generators, batteries, or solar panels. Usage changes by community and Ordnung, or church guidelines. Finding the one. As early as age 14, Amish females start dating. They start looking for a husband as soon as they graduate school, but it may take some trial and error before they discover the right man. Therefore, she'll begin observing social gatherings like church, frolics, and the young organizations organized on Sunday nights. The community's young men and women will continue to party after the adults have left the location of that week's church service. Although the tempo is lively and joyful, they're supposedly there to perform Christian tunes. At large tables facing one another, the boys and girls sat apart. Other activities, such as dinner and possibly even a volleyball game, occur between and after the songs. A lot of evaluating possible companions is also part of it, which is usually where relationships start. A boy will eventually ask a girl if he may take her home in his car. Everything is Ordnung. The Ordnung serves as the foundation for Amish life. It's an unwritten set of guidelines for how each community should live out its days, often being down to the tiniest detail. The fundamentals will always stay the same, but every community will have its version, and variations are common. Although the Ordnung is based on biblical concepts, it offers significantly more detailed counsel on daily issues than the Bible occasionally does. One of the characteristics of an Amish individual is their submission to the Ordnung. Strong regulations like this aid in defining each community and consequently its members. It preserves that community and its ideals. It changes with the people it ties to and is never codified. Society may reject a person if they break any of these standards, including those about seemingly unimportant matters like clothing codes. It's not always insignificant, though. The only penalty for perpetrators of sexual abuse in the Amish society, according to a 2020 article by Type Investigations, is shunning for up to 6 weeks. Everyone is supposed to forget and move on after the abuser confesses. It's not advised to consult outside authorities. However, some cases of abuse have been reported to authorities. Turn the other cheek. The statement, which we're all familiar with, is frequently the focus of heated discussion. To what extent is biblical pacifism appropriate? It should come as no surprise that the Amish take it literally and unmistakably to imply no violence. Never. They're lucky enough to live in a nation that mostly keeps the big bad guys away from them, frequently through violent methods, which puts them in an intriguing situation. An Amish individual will never serve in a position that could force them to use violence. This covers careers in the military, politics, law enforcement, and litigation. Their approach to dealing with the wrongdoers reflects this. However, they do not blame those who use violence and do appreciate the work that the United States has done on their behalf. Instead, they offer prayers for them. Ironically, over the years, their convictions in this area have led to persecution and acts of violence against them, mainly because they chose not to fight in the world wars. Rumspringa. One of the most impressive aspects of the Amish faith is this, at least to an outsider. We've read extensively about the rigid rules that govern their daily lives, the additional regulations imposed on the community's women and girls, and the restricted opportunities available to its young people. We may find it charming or terrible, but remember that every adult in that society is there because they chose to be. All teenagers raised in the Amish faith are given the chance to leave. Furthermore, they should do so without facing consequences or alienation. They can experience everything they choose in the mainstream world as part of a coming-of-age ceremony known as Rumspringa. Parents naturally want their children to act decently, yet they can violate ordinary principles. They then decide to depart from modern society or be baptized into the Amish faith. A significant majority choose to stay. Frolicking. A lovely frolic is one of the most essential occasions in Amish life. In addition to creating a hand-stitched quilt, Amish women enjoy gathering as a quilting bee to exchange stories and news. The joy of a job successfully done as a group makes Amish ladies happy, and a frolic will always have a need-based motivation. Without quilts, the activity can center around canning, shelling peas, or shucking corn. The males typically use a barn raising to gather and partake in food, laughter, and socializing. This is often a massive undertaking, requiring hundreds of people to organize and carry out. Because everyone works together, nobody has to put in too much effort. Throughout, the women will serve food, and the atmosphere in the neighborhood will resemble a carnival. No strings attached. The Amish frown upon using musical instruments, especially those with strings. However, their days are filled with singing since they like music. Throughout the week, several singing activities are organized. Occasionally, a harmonica will be played as the family gathers for a bit of evening harmony by the fire. But the Amish don't move those hips, so there won't be any dancing. Both dancing and playing an instrument are viewed as ways for people to express themselves and draw attention to themselves. Growing up, an Amish individual would have sung religious hymns in school every day, usually in English. They've sung with friends while working, in the shower, and cooking at various times. Spiritual themes are not required in songs. The church songs are saved for more formal group settings, whether for rehearsal or during services. We'll see what the young people are up to when they sing. Keeping quiet. The Amish mindset may come as a bit of a shock to those of us accustomed to the Christian and mainly Protestant desire to share the gospel wherever we go. In fact, to travel to locations expressly. They don't just go out there and hand out flyers. They also don't orate while standing on soapboxes. They have reasons for taking this route, even though it appears to be against what the Bible teaches. First of all, their community is meant to be distinct from ours. More significantly, they believe a genuine relationship with God cannot be formed through surface-level interaction. The correct manner of living is their evangelization. They're prosperous, happy, and healthy. People want to know more. Although anyone is invited to visit and experience it for themselves, few can see past what they perceive to be limitations to truly appreciate the faith-based joy that lies beneath. Faceless comfort. We can't determine whether this one is spooky or cute. Typically, Amish dolls lack faces. Horror movies are usually associated with this in Western society. To give a doll personality, we need a face to make it live. And for our Amish friends, it's this issue. Some things in the Bible are very explicit, and creating graven images is one of them. Making idols or anything to worship that isn't God is what many contemporary Christians think it's talking about. Therefore, most art is safe unless you develop an unhealthy relationship with it. However, the Amish do not create graven pictures since they're traditionalists to a man, or ones that are stitched. However, Amish children may not have the same exposure to television and movies as youngsters in the West, which may limit their capacity for creativity. Health holidays. The Amish do not object to medical care, in contrast to certain Christian sects. Their pain threshold is typically higher than ours, and since they lack insurance, medical care can be costly. Therefore, it's not taken lightly. It's complicated, of course, and we won't even attempt to discuss it here. The idea of healthy vacations that Amish people enjoy is one element that we adore. Chiropractic care is popular among the Amish. For any bone-clicking therapy from a reputable chiropractor, they'll go to considerable, or rather long, lengths. For them, it can even become a kind of holiday. Amish patients frequently travel hundreds of miles for care. When they do, they say they have a great time. It's an opportunity to explore new places, take a vacation from work, and perhaps even indulge in illegal activities, like watching cable TV at the hotel. All bundled up. The courtship customs of the Amish are the subject of one of the most infamous misconceptions about their way of life. In particular, a notion known as bundling. Peals of laughter or stunned amazement could result from a fast Google search for this term. It's almost unbearable to consider some of the descriptions of medieval bundling. It seems that the young pair would be placed in a bed together after being bound and wrapped in bundles of fabric, frequently with a board that resembled a fence spanning the length of the bed between them. Then they would be left to get intimate. We can guarantee you that we do not currently know of any example of that level of bundling. Some ultra-conservative cultures still expect their children to date while fully clothed in bed, but instead of being strips of tightly bound cloth, their binds are the values they uphold. Unbelievably, the custom's practical roots stem from the fact that, in the past, the bedroom was the only warm place in a house after dark. Socializing there made sense. Unbuttoned. We adore this regulation, but we're not sure why. Buttons are wicked. Pins or snaps are used to hold clothing on a woman's body. In some tribes, even snaps are regarded as too much of a contemporary convenience. Buttons are considered a luxury item since they're far too simple to create and wear. Since no two buttons are alike, especially if you want them to be because you're trying to replace one that fell off, they might consequently contribute to vanity in addition to individuality. In a story about pins, a girl from a nearby village that permitted using snaps on their dresses ended up staying with a higher or less lenient community. The local girls began using them on their garments when they realized snaps were similar to long pins. The situation culminated in a formal community meeting when the girl was instructed to use pins or return to her origins. Barbaric. Soul music. The Amish are dispersed among a network of autonomous villages. The Bible is the only source of authority. Every community has its own Ordnung. One thing is sure, though, on any given Sunday, more than 1,900 Amish congregations will sing the same song simultaneously wherever an Amish service is being held. The second song sung is the Loblied hymn, taken from the Ausbund. The Amish hymn book is called the Ausbund. It's existed since the 1500s and is the only one. There is no musical notation since the songs are ingrained in popular memory. The Anabaptist martyrs who wrote the songs on those pages are constantly singing them, reminding the Amish of the suffering endured by their ancestors. The tempos are languid, with long notes that sound more like chanting than singing. Instead of music for the ear, it's music for the soul. Horsing around. The horse-drawn buggy is one of the first images that spring to mind when we think of the Amish. They're the most precise representation of the difference between our lives and the Amish's, with a few minor exceptions, such as certain towns not being permitted to cover theirs, aside from a little compartment where kids can seek protection during inclement weather. Their designs are essentially the same. Amish people are not allowed to own motor vehicles, however they are allowed to ride along if needed. The buggy's slower pace complements their philosophy of life and fosters a sense of solidarity by making members more dependent on one another. Additionally, it's a means of maintaining their separation from the outside world, which is significant to them according to the Bible. It's interesting to note that an Amish buggy's roof indicates which community it belongs to. Typical colors are black, gray, brown, and white. However, one daring bunch is wearing yellow. Limited wardrobe. An Amish woman wears 4 different outfits. Yes, I'm aware of that. Do you need some time to move past that, ladies? A glass of water, perhaps? The idea is straightforward. 1 for wash, 1 for wear, 1 for dress, and 1 for spare. It simplifies the process of choosing what to wear each morning. Even the Sunday best outfit, which was most likely her wedding gown, will be functional. They won't have any patterns and will be in simple colors. They're no longer intended to be covered. On a workday, the woman will wear a gray apron over their clothes. They're barefoot at work. Of course, they always wear their prayer headgear. The aprons change from gray to snowy white if the lady's still unmarried, or black for those already engaged. And black shoes and stockings must be worn to church services. The males are dressed in a black suit with suspenders, a straw hat, or a formal black felt hat, and no belts because of the gaudy buckles, no buttons, collars, or zippers. They're too military. Leave a message. An Amish home is not allowed to have a telephone. Most of the reasons should be evident by now, beginning with having a connection to the telecommunications network. However, it's acknowledged that phone communication is becoming increasingly important in business, particularly as more Amish people are joining the workforce. Phones are available. However, they're in barns, outbuildings, or communal booths off the site. Because of this, you're unlikely to find someone picking up the phone. Instead, you must leave a voicemail. Additionally, the Amish community views phones as a hindrance to the essential in-person, face-to-face connection. They're never used for socializing, just when necessary. But they are unquestionably helpful in emergencies, and they're commonly used, for instance, to call the veterinarian. In this case, they can only be considered advantageous because speed has the potential to save lives. Like any new endeavor, society took the time to investigate and evaluate the potential effects of phone use on its members before modifying it to support their sense of community best. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon